Right, I've got more of a tier 1 civilian skill for you, but you could perform it totally solo pad, on a bag, on a bob, or with partners. Basically, you want to ask yourself, when you're training in the gym and when you're combatively and you're striking pads and you're doing drills, are you in a similar state of mind to what you'd be in if you were fighting for your life? Chances are no, eh? You'd be in a much more cognitive, calm frame of mind, where most of the time you're probably concentrating on the attributes of the skill. Now, the gross motor and simple, and once they're installed, they're installed. So if you've got a battle plan such as Blitzkrieg, strike, attach, continue till it's finished, you've got that down pat, as you all should have. Now's the time to really start adding the attitude to it. So for people that find that difficult, you might act as if, just muster as much aggression as you can as you do the drill on the pads. So show me what you think somebody explosively aggressive would look like, and then you'll start to dome the characteristics of it. That's one way. You need to go further than that. So this is a book, blatant plug, it's not really. This is a book that I wrote some years ago, Psy Com, and it relates to understanding combative psychology and how to implement neural based learning strategies in order to submerge the physicality of the physical skill with the emotional content, right? So any of you that have got the online streaming program, go to this. It's a PDF, you can print it off. If you get a problem with printing it off because there's a password, it's Neil, it's lowercase N-E-I-L, just put that in and you can print it off. I recommend you print it off. If you're interested in the psychology, two elements that relate to that are state access, your ability to access the most productive emotional state during the full spectrum of the fight. So that would be pre-fight, switched on, alert, aware, calm and confident. And as your amygdala triggers any kind of threat stress, in control, breathing. Then the second that you need to engage in a preemptive sense, just an immediate explosion, an access of explosive aggression. It's a cold clinical aggression that you are managing, you are in control of, not red mist, just an explosion of aggression. So if you imagine maximum violence at 10, you're going from 0 to 12 and through the subject. That's the thinking. That would look, if that was intentful, because your fucking life depended on it, extremely aggressive, demonstratively aggressive, whereby you just hit a switch and it would be absolute focus, tenacious resolve through the enemy. So there's a series of drills that you can do. First thing that I would suggest you do is get your Blitzkrieg down. So say, take a solo pad, get a partner, work on a bob, work palm strike attach, repeated strikes, high and low, snatching it down, stomp, getting away. So your game plan, those of you that are involved in UC up to this point will know what the UC game plan is. It's the directive of principles that we employ, where we strive to use the game plan all the time. So it's based around being aware, alert and aware, so you're likely to see the problem. It's not always possible. You have to train counter-offense, because there will be times when you need to react. The primary is learning to be proactive. That's where we're going with this. And when you learn your Blitzkrieg method, it's going through the subject until the subject's down and then you're gone. And that might employ any level of violence between 5 and 10. If the subject's clinically cold and unconscious after the first shot, then I'll stop there. If it takes 2 or 3 more, then he's getting them. But the idea would be to completely manage the emotional state of explosive aggression that I've accessed and recognise when the job's done, so that I can clinically stop to think of an attack-trained war dog. So, first exercise for you is to take your Blitzkrieg, right, and show me, metaphorically speaking, after 3 to 5 reps to get the feel and the flow and the neural pathway moving again, your current 100%. Show me your current 100% demonstration of speed and explosive aggression with impact through the target. And if you want to do that successfully, you want to visualize in your head that you're not that you are exploding through somebody that wants to fucking end your life. So there's a need. Life depends on it. There's an emotional content, there's an intention behind it. That would be the ideal thing that you want to implement every time you train on pads, or every time you train on kit or with a partner. So in my head, I don't hit pads, I hit people. Every time I train is an opportunity to visualize me destroying a subject, and if it elicits an emotional response to a degree of adrenaline, then I'm communicating with the parts of my brain that, you know, don't really decipher between what's real, what's simulated, or what's visualized. As long as it elicits an emotional response, it knows it. So I've got a good chance of downloading it to the motor memory. In which case, if I'm called upon to be spontaneous and counter-reactive, or I see it coming and I have to do what I need to do offensively, it's part of me. I mean, I know it on a deeper level than just consciously, right? And in order to get that, you need to implement this kind of Psy Com emotional conditioning to your training. And visualization is a huge part of that. So what you're going to do is take 3 to 5 reps and do your Blitzkrieg and finish with the last 2 at least, doing them as aggressively and as explosively and as powerfully as you can muster at that point. Maybe you record your performance, right? Then I want you to do a core visualization. So initially you're going to do how you would deal with an aggressive, violent subject. So you visualize in your head, so you can do it standing or seating, just relaxed. First of all, you might internally visualize, which means all I'm doing is thinking about what I want to create in my head. And I'm visualizing in the first person, so I'm imagining that I'm seeing out of my own eyes. If I look down, I see my hands and my feet. I'm not looking out at myself, looking at me. Right? So in the first person, not the second person. And when I visualize, I'm going to visualize walking along the street, and it's just a standard interview. So for this example, you're going to use the bump, interview bump. Somebody walks past you, it's relatively crowded, you would have avoided if you could. You intend to yield, and as the person walks past you, purposely bumps you aggressively. It moves you. Your initial reaction is, fucking hell, what are you doing? And he turns around immediately aggressive, guttural fucking tenacity. He says, watch where you're fucking going. And it starts to move towards you all puffed up. Well, if you're not familiar with that kind of aggressive behaviour, and if it was that unexpected, there's a good chance you're going to get an immediate flood of adrenaline. So you're going to go from wherever you were, probably between condition white and condition yellow, straight into red, and plausibly beyond. Key thing is that you don't freeze up and go to black, condition black, because you know that's something that is very difficult to override, and that's very common with somebody that's not familiar with violence. So if you're not familiar with that kind of situation in a real sense, then visualize it. Visualize what you would do. Create a blueprint of a response so that your subconscious brain has an option should you ever find yourself there. Because if you kid yourself thinking I'm just hitting pads really hard and looking really good in the mirror, it's going to be enough. It's not, because what's missing is you're not training the way in which you would fight for your life. Most of the time, are you? I know you're not. You should be when you're training drills, and it's hard. It's easy if you understand that you need to be aggressive, just to be aggressive, continuously act as if. You know, you're not necessarily mustering serious aggression every time, because once you understand how to do it, you understand how to do it. You're not going to access the trained aggression that you show explode through the fucker, and then when he wakes up in hospital, he's not going to ring you up and go, you know, was you tricking or was you really aggressive? I think you would be convinced you were really aggressive. So act as if is, you know, what you're cultivating, but it becomes part of you, that you can switch on and switch off like a resource. It's not something you carry around like a chip on your shoulder. But the reality is, that feeling that you're going to feel when he's bumped past you, turned around and got really aggressive, that immediate flood of adrenaline is going to be present. And that's not what's present before you do your drill in the gym. So you should create it. You can create it for good simulation and scenario training with good role players, as we know. But here I'm giving you a solo exercise, so you can work it on a bit of kit. What I want you to visualise in your head is a guy walks past you, you can picture him however you want. You know, think of the guy that you'd least like to fight and imagine it's him. And he's walking towards you and he fucking bumps you and he's all aggressive, and you turn. And you're assertive, but you're not rude, you're not submissive. Fuck's sake, which way are you going, man? I'm fucking walking. And he turns around and he gets serious, fuckingly aggressive. So he takes your assertive response as picking up the gauntlet that he's just thrown. And he's game. Imagine in that moment when you realise that your hands had to come up as he's coming forward aggressively, well, that's the moment you need that first strike of your Blitzkrieg. That's your preemptive strike that you've been working on the pads, and that's where you need it. So are you sure that it's up to scratch under those stressful conditions? And if not, why not? And this is a good way to make it so. And you need to imagine that in this case, this is one tough bastard. I hit him with that solid shot in the head, reach for him for attachment, and he's just staggered, he's just looking at me. So I hit him again and again and again and again, I'm grabbing, knees, snatch, and stomp. It's down, it's done. Imagine seeing what I would see, hearing what I would hear, feeling what I would feel. And I would try and muster that feeling. Really try and bring that to a summit. And then I'd double it, and double it again in my head. So I'd really elicit that emotional state change, even though I'm just internally visualising. And that's one way in which you might get familiar with the script you're going to use. As soon as you're familiar with the script that you're going to use, go to a piece of kit. It could be a bob on a wall, it could be a bag, it could be a solo pad, and repeat your visualization. Start to muster it, and the second that you imagine hitting him, so go through it, bumped you, he's turned, he's aggressive, you've turned, you imagine that flood of adrenaline, but only this time, take a sharp breath in and you can control that adrenaline and push it out with your breath. And you tell him assertively, watch where you're going. And he comes forward. And that exact moment, that should I or shouldn't I moment when you should, I want you to feel that. I want you to imagine how you think that would feel to you right now if it was really unfamiliar. And if it feels a little bit cumbersome, that's fine, just iron through it until you're comfortable with it. Boom, in the first shot, gets him reeling. As soon as you get to that point where you're visualising the first shot, kinesthetically now, with half opened eyes, visualise it, see your kit in front of you. As soon as you imagine that first strike, boom, 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 do it on the kit, do it on the pad, do it on the bob, do it with your partner. Do it explosively and tenaciously. Visualise internally that it's the subject as you kinesthetically, externally beat the target. So you're now feeling what you're seeing and fusing it together. And do it a couple of times, and then afterwards ask yourself the question, how much harder was that shot? How much faster was it? How much more determined was I? And visualise the whole thing, even when you've done the drill, and visualise looking on the floor, subject's down, he's fucking not moving, he's totally unconscious, it's no longer ambulatory. You look around, you break tunnel vision, you scan, you move to an exit. Train how you intend to operate, you move to a part of the environment that's going to be more beneficial to you, maybe the wall. As you move towards the exit, access a weapon or pick up a weapon, imagining that you may need to escalate the level of that violence if a further threat comes along. If not, put the tool away and get moving. Constantly in any fight dynamic, you want to be winning from the first thing you're doing. And as you're doing everything, it should build upon itself till you get to the point where you are just getting to a better and better and better position to dominate this fight dynamic and get yourself free, get yourself clear and safe. So, visualization. So the drill is, practice your Blitzkrieg drill on a piece of kit as hard and fast and aggressive as you can muster right now, 3 to 5 reps. Then visualize the walk by bump. It's a classic interview. Walks by, boom, bumps you. Turns around, you're fucking assertive, goes off his head. So imagine the whole thing. If you know aggressive body language and behaviour, he'd be puffing up, he'd be talking shit, he'd be swearing, profanity, and then drop down to single syllables. He'd become monosyllabic and then he'd come forward. Imagine the whole thing. And imagine that preachy preemptive shot hits him just at the right time. You grab him, you beat him down.